Hello, and welcome to Hermetic Journeys. I think it's a pretty cool name. Pretty sexy, don't you think? Well, not sexy, but certainly mysterious. You know, that's important too. It's good to see you back. Thank you for staying with me. I mean, you know, all things aside, oh my God, thank you to the people who have subscribed. Oh, that is just beyond my expectations. And thank you to those who have offered feedback. That's really, really important to me because I've never done anything like this, and I'm pretty much a goofball. But I enjoy doing it. I'm having so much fun talking about this stuff. I mean, really. I mean, who can you talk to about this stuff, right? But because most people really don't care. But you do, and I do. So that's what's important, right? Okay, we got that. So in terms of feedback, one of my dear friends said to me, hey, Tony G, you're talking about, sulfur and mercury, and suddenly we have the Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, and absolutely right. Didn't really go into great detail about that. But I am going to do a separate video on alchemical processes and things like that, and how they relate to Atalanta Fugiens, okay? Because that's such a big subject. I don't want you to, start getting distracted and watch the monsters. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the monsters. Anyway, onward and upward here. What we're talking about now is the first emblem of Atalanta Fugiens, and we're going to get into that in greater depth in the next section. However, before we do that, I need to speak about something called the Emerald Tablet. Why? Well, because Michael Maier used some context from the Emerald Tablet, okay, some text from the Emerald Tablet in Atalanta Fugiens, all right? And you're going to see that unfold as we go into this. Now, what the hell is the Emerald Tablet? All right, well, the Emerald Tablet is an ancient text that is believed to have been written by someone named Hermes Trismegistus, all right? Hermes is the Greek name for an Egyptian god named Thoth, okay? Trismegistus means thrice greatest. You'll notice there are a lot of threes involved in this, and we're going to get into that too. Yeah, a lot. But anyway, so Thoth was an Egyptian god, okay, from the Egyptian pantheon, who was the god of wisdom, the sciences, mathematics, all right? In fact, it is said that that Thoth actually was a survivor from the great cataclysm that took the continent of Atlantis under the ocean. Okay, and Plato, the Greek philosopher, writes about this in two of his very popular works, the Timaeus and Critias. I believe that's how they're pronounced. Forgive me if I butcher that. And anyway. Because his teacher, a guy named Solon, got this information from the ancient Egyptian records, because a lot of the Greek philosophers spent a decent amount of time in Egypt. Pythagoras spent 20 years there, Plato several years. So the reason I'm going in this direction is that Thoth was believed to have been from Atlantis and took some of that knowledge of this Atlantean civilization, whoever they were, many, many years ago, okay, and introduced it into Egyptian culture, which then filtered down into Greek culture and so on and so into the Romans and that kind of thing, okay? So this document was believed to have been found by many, many people historically, Adam, first Adam, a bunch of different people. I mean, whether you believe this or not, it's really not important at this point because this will apply to Atalanta Fugiens, I promise, okay? So, interestingly, we're going to talk about somebody else who did his own interpretation or translation of the text from the Emerald Tablet. It eventually came down into Latin. And a very well-known scientist, physicist, genius kind of guy named Sir Isaac Newton did this. Well, what does Isaac Newton have to do with the Emerald Tablet? Well, not many people know this, all right? Some do, some don't. Most don't. Sir Isaac Newton was an alchemist. In fact, most of what he wrote in his lifetime was about alchemy. He had an alchemical lab. So why do I bring this up, right? Well, because it's cool. It's interesting, right? And so Isaac Newton, I'm going to read you Sir Isaac Newton's translation of the Emerald Tablet, okay? And I'm going to use my trusty iPhone here. So here we go. "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of one only thing. And as all things have been and arose from one by the mediation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. The sun is its father, the moon its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth is its nurse. The father of all perfection in the whole world is here. Its force or power is entire if it be converted into earth." Okay, what does all that mean? Okay, we're going to get into all of it. We're going to, over the course of the next few videos, we're going to take little pieces of it where it's applicable in Atalanta Fugiens. Okay, but for now, what you need to know is the motto or the title of the first emblem is "The wind hath carried it in its belly." Okay? So now that we have that foundation, all right, we know that Michael Maier invoked the Emerald Tablet for Atalanta Fugiens. Isaac Newton translated it from the ancient text written by, it is believed to be written by the Egyptian god or demigod Thoth. Okay, who was from Atlantis? It is believed by some people, okay? So here we have this great lineage, and we are ready to go. Let's take a look at the emblem and really decipher it. Okay, so yeah, here we are. Let's talk about the emblem. But before we talk about the emblem, I want to clear up something that I didn't even discuss in the first video or the first section of this video, which is, what does the word Fugiens mean in Atalanta Fugiens, okay? So I studied Latin, and when I saw the title Fugiens, it seemed to me like there was some kind of a play on something here, because you figure everything Michael Maier does, it's in layers, right? So, because fugue seemed like it was part of it, and then I thought, well, maybe there's a component to Atalanta. Like, what is she doing? Well, she's running, right? I mean, Atalanta's running. So, Fugiens is a play on two words. The Latin word fugere, which means to run away, okay, and the fugues that are in the book, all right? So he took this and he combined them and made the word Fugiens. So we have Atalanta, you know who she is now, right? And then we have, so it's Atalanta runs away, okay, which is what she does, and she does so well, all right? So I just wanted to clear that up for everybody. Hopefully that all makes sense now. Secondly, I wanted to give a little more credit, more notability to Matthias Marian Basilensis. I had to look at his name because it's such a long name, but the incredible artist who etched the emblems, okay? And to recap, these emblems were etched on copper plates in reverse and then printed. So, I mean, this guy's talent is beyond comprehension. I mean, he was incredibly wonderful, and he did many illustrations, not just for Michael Maier, for other books as well. And I have to say that that's what really drew me to this book, is his artwork. You know, and I'm sure when you see it, it's intriguing. I mean, you think, what is going on here in these images? What are these? What is this? I had to find out what these cryptic messages meant, right? It's something in me wanted to know. Okay, I'm just curious. And so what's great about it is it leads you down all these avenues. You know, Michael Maier and his breadth and depth of knowledge is kind of beyond comprehension. So just wanted to talk about that for a minute. Now, we're going to talk about the emblem, all right? And then we're going to go into the discourse, all right? So first, to recap the structure of the book, we've got, okay, I hope I'm holding this up high enough because I didn't for the last video. We have the emblem, and then we have the epigram, which is the poem about the emblem. right? And then we have the fugue over here, okay? And then we have the discourse, all right? And the discourse, we're going to read some sections out of here. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't want you to get distracted and watch I Dream a Genie. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed I Dream a Genie. I love that show. But anyway, so let's take a look at the epigram, all right? Because there's some interesting stuff in here. I'm going to read that, and then we're going to move on. So, when the unborn child, which lies hidden in the womb of the north wind, one day will rise to the light alive, he alone will be able to surpass all deeds of heroism. With his art, his hand, bodily strength, and spirit, let him not be born for you like a Coeso, and not like a useless abortion, not as an Agrippa, but under a lucky star. Okay, so what does this mean? He's obviously describing a child, the child that's in the belly of this enigmatic figure, which we're going to talk about in a minute, okay? But he mentions the name Agrippa here. Well, who's Agrippa? Well, there was a person who lived before Michael Maier in the late 15th, early 16th centuries, and his name was Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. All right. Now, Michael Maier in this book occasionally slams some people, and Agrippa is one of those unfortunates who he does not like. And why he doesn't like him? Well, Agrippa was more of an occultist. Michael Maier would have attributed him as would have called him a puffer. Of course, we know the puffers are not. It's a negative connotation, right? These are the guys with the furnaces, with the bellows, trying to, they don't really have the spiritual component of it or the metaphysical component. They're just trying to make gold, which, again, I say, hell, what's wrong with making gold, right? Well, anyway, Agrippa apparently was not one of Michael Maier's favorite people. He did write a very famous book. Actually, it's 3 books. It's called the Book of Occult Philosophy, and they're considered classics today if you're an occultist. Okay, but anyway, so that's what the Agrippa component means. Well, so let's take a look at the image and try to apply this epigram to the image. Okay, well, we have this enigmatic figure, this man whose hair is flowing, like the wind. It's part of the clouds. His hands, there are clouds coming from his hands. With vapors, clouds, wind. All right, well, who is this guy? All right. So Michael Maier eventually tells us, okay, in the discourse, which we're going to look at next. All right. So, but we need to focus. Of course, we got this enigmatic figure, and there's a graphic for you. And as we pan down, we see this little baby inside. Okay, it's a little baby inside inside this guy. Well, what the hell's going on here? Men don't have babies and get pregnant unless it's I don't know, Doctor Who. But anyway, so let's go to the discourse. All right, and I'm going to read sections of it for you. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Like I said, I promise. I don't want you to get bored and turn on I Dream a Genie. So here we go. In the Tabulus Maragdina. Okay, well, Tabulus Maragdina is the Latin word for the Latin title for the emerald tablet. It's the same thing. Okay, so he uses the Latin here. Hermes wrote briefly about the work of nature. Well, we know who Hermes is. Okay, Hermes is the Greek rendering of the Egyptian god Thoth, who wrote the emerald tablet. Okay. And then he talks about the work of nature. Well, we now know alchemists had a deep reverence for nature, for the processes of nature, okay? And they tried to kind of accelerate them in their labs, all right, by using fire and a variety of other things, distillation and all that stuff, to bring things about quicker. He says, among others, the wind carried him in its belly. By this he means, as it were, he whose father is the sun and whose mother is the moon will be carried, before he is born, by wind and vapor, just as a flying bird is carried in the air, by the air. Okay, so again, 2 other lines from the Emerald Tablet. Okay, the father is the sun, the mother is the moon. Okay, so he's talking about something here very, very important. This child, this philosophical child, as they would call it. Okay, we're going to skip down a little bit here. Now I am asked, who is it that has to be carried by the wind? To him I answer, in chemical respect, it is the sulfur which is carried in mercury. Okay, so now it appears that this little baby is sulfur, okay, represents sulfur, and this wind guy, all right, represents Mercury, all right? So as we move on, he gives us a few more clues. He's kind of clarifying this very slowly, okay? So in another section, he says, all mercury is composed of vapors, that is to say, of water, which the earth raises along with it into the thin air, and of earth, which the air compels to return into watery earth or earthy water. Therefore, it is not without reason that Mercury is called the messenger of the gods and the mediator, winged at his head and feet. He flies through the air like the wind itself. Okay, so Mercury is the Greek god, okay, or Roman god, you know, they're interchangeable sometimes, all right? And he was the messenger between the gods and men, okay? He was allowed to go between earth and Mount Olympus, which was, you know, heaven, whatever you want to call it, okay? And so he exists in both worlds, which is actually very much like the element mercury, the metal. It is a liquid metal, right? So it's liquid and it's a metal, all right? So it's got two components to it, just like the god Mercury. Again, he's using these allegorical figures, okay? From the Greek myths, all right? The embryo, a little further down, the embryo is sulfur, engendered by the heavenly sun and the north wind, to ripen and to procreate twins in due time, one of whom is white-haired and is called Calais, the other red-haired and called Zetes. Okay, so I looked up Calais and Zetes, and they are the children of somebody called Boreas, right? Boreas is the wind god, all right? Specifically, to the Greeks, the north wind, all right? So I'm going to tie this all up in a nice package with a beautiful bow right now, okay? So we've got Michael Maier talking about vapors and fumes and Boreas and sulfur and all this stuff. Well, let's get to the nitty gritty here. What Michael Maier is doing is he's invoking a theory from an 8th century Arabic alchemist named Jabir. Okay, Jabir was his theories and his books were embraced by alchemists of Michael Maier's time. Okay, they loved his stuff. Okay, and this particular theory about it's called the Mercury Sulfur theory, comes from a book that Jabir wrote called the Book of Explanations. All right, so he's explaining things. Okay, so I'm going to read an excerpt from that book concerning this Mercury Sulfur theory that will shed light on what we're talking about here, and hopefully resolve any questions or mysteries that we might have in our minds, okay? The metals are all, in essence, composed of mercury combined and coagulated with sulfur that has risen to it in earthy, smoke-like vapors. They differ from one another only because of the difference of their accidental qualities. And this difference is due to the difference of their sulfur, which again is caused by a variation in the soils and in their positions with respect to the heat of the sun. Okay? So Boreas represents the mercury vapors within the earth. Alchemists considered the earth as a womb for the metals. Okay? Mother Earth, hence the term Mother Earth. Okay? A womb for the metals. So we've got sulfur, the little sulfur baby, being carried by Boreas, right? The mercury vapors, all right? And that combination or various proportions of those two things will affect the quality of the metals that are in the earth. Now, why is this important? Because ultimately, remember we talked about this in the first video, ultimately, alchemy is about transformation. All right, in this case, it's the transmutation of metals within the earth, because we talked about this too. Common lead, silver, any of these metals eventually wants to become gold, wants to become the perfection of the perfected thing, the perfected metal. Okay, so that's what Michael Maier is talking about here. He's invoking this 8th century Arabic alchemist named Jabir, and we're going to talk about him as we go on with these videos as well, okay? These sons of Boreas, as the chemical poet Orpheus wrote, were with Jason and the Argonauts, who went to Colchis in search of the Golden Fleece. Wow, okay, lots of stuff here to unpack. I'm going to speak about this briefly, and then the next section we're going to talk about it specifically. It's really, really cool. So Calais, he's very specific to tell us, he's telling us that Calais has white hair, right? And Zetes has red hair. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, in alchemy, there are 3 phases of the operation. There are 7 operations. Michael Maier believes in 7. I've heard many, many different, 7, 12, whatever. But Michael Maier is saying, we didn't get to that yet, and we will get to that. There's 7 operations, okay, but of these 7 operations, there are 3 phases, 3 separate phases. One is the black phase, right? Then there's the white phase and the red phase, and we'll get into those specifics too later on. For the sake of brevity at this point, like I said earlier, I will be making a separate video that will go into these 7 stages and 3 phases of these operations, and because it's important to know this, because this is what this whole book really is the process of creating the Philosopher's Stone, okay, which is not really a stone, it's a powder. Okay, as if I haven't bamboozled you enough, we're going to jump over now to the next section on Jason and the Argonauts. Really cool story. Stay with me if you can. Don't watch The Monks of Zerai Genie. Just stay with me. Okay, here we go. So, hello. We're here to talk about Jason and the Argonauts. Okay, so and what this has to do with Atalanta Fugiens, and there are a few things, a few really cool connections. Okay, so first, in terms of Jason and the Argonauts, when I was a little kid, like that little sulfur baby inside of Boreas's belly. Not that small, but probably about 7. My dad belonged to a movie club. Now, back then, in the Stone Age there, we didn't have big screen TVs and all that stuff, but my dad had an 8mm projector, right? And he had a big screen, that he put up on the wall there. And he would, every week or every month, whatever it was, he would get a movie from this movie club that he belonged to, all right? And these were edited versions of full-featured movies, full-length movies, okay? So they were like 10 or 15-minute reels, about like that big, okay? And you'd put them on a projector, and some of them had sound, which is kind of cool. A lot of them were silent, but some of them had sound. And we would watch these movies when we'd go, to visit my dad every week. So anyway... one of them was a movie called Jason and the Argonauts, and I thought it was like the coolest movie. Why? Well, because Jason fought skeletons. Hey, I was 7, right? So anyway, it was really, really cool because he, in the film, he ends up fighting these skeletons, the children of the Hydra's teeth, and that's a whole other story, which we won't get into. But that's why I like the movie, okay? So fast forward so many years, a lot of years, and I'm reading Atalanta Fugiens, and lo and behold, Michael Maier brings up Jason and the Argonauts. I'm like, whoa, I remember that movie when I was a kid, right? Really cool. So I watched the movie the other night. That was really, really cool. It's very well done. It's free. You can get it on YouTube, right? You just download. Not you have to download. Just watch it on YouTube. It's really cool. And I suggest you do that because it was done by a guy named Ray Harryhausen who did these. They didn't have computer graphics back then, so they used stop animation, kind of like Wallace and Gromit, if some of you are familiar with that, or Gumby, right? That kind of thing. But they were really well done. So by all means, check this movie out. So anyway, what is the story of Jason and the Argonauts? I'm going to briefly touch on this because it's a big story. I'm just going to give you the overview. Basically, Jason was the son of a king, all right, who was dethroned by his brother, okay? So Jason's uncle murdered Jason's father, okay? And Jason was carried away by someone to protect him. And when he became 20 years old, he went back to his uncle to reclaim the throne, okay? So his uncle, being kind of a sinister kind of guy, thinking, well, if you want to reclaim this throne, you have to retrieve the Golden Fleece for me, okay? Well, the Golden Fleece, So Jason goes on this adventure. He builds a ship called the Argo, and he hires people, or kind of like, really, they don't have any money, so he gets them to go along in this great adventure. Well, of those people, we've got Hercules, Orpheus, right? These Greek characters. Everybody knows who Hercules is. Well, Orpheus, was a musician, right? He played his harp and things happened, right? And Castor and Pollux, the twins, the Gemini twins, okay, from the constellation Gemini, and which I found out the other night, just blew me away, watching a documentary by Michael Wood on Jason and the Argonauts. Atalanta was on the ship. Well, how cool is that? right? Because she's a fast runner. She was the only woman on the ship. The guys that were on the ship, on the Argo, were called Argonauts. Okay, that's where Jason and the Argonauts come from, right? And she was one of them. Well, how cool is that, right? But the second connection we want to talk about concerning the Golden Fleece, or Jason and the Argonauts, and Atalanta Fugiens, has to do with the Golden Fleece itself. Okay, now what is the Golden Fleece? Well, the Golden Fleece was a ram, all right, that was whose fleece was turned to gold by Zeus. It was given to humanity as a gift, and humanity eventually sacrificed it for something. And that Golden Fleece had many very fascinating qualities to it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what I did was I occasionally referenced something called the Suda, which is a 10th century Byzantine encyclopedia. I'm reading this part. I don't normally read stuff of the ancient Mediterranean world. Okay, and it's now it's online. It's you can do searches for it. So I did a search for the Golden Fleece, and this gives you a perspective of what people from the 10th century were thinking about. All right. So in reference to the Golden Fleece, I think you'll find this extremely interesting. Okay. I'm going to read this now. The golden fleeced skin, which Jason took with the Argonauts, was not, as is reported in poetry, but it was a book written on skins, concerning how it is necessary that gold comes about through alchemy. Therefore, the men of that time naturally called the skin golden, because of the function which arose from it. So in this interpretation of the Golden Fleece, we are told through this Byzantine encyclopedia from the 10th century that the Golden Fleece is actually a book, okay? Or some kind of reference to a book. Remember we talked about early books being done on vellum or animal skin, okay? Well, this is what we're talking about here. So here we're seeing this interesting perspective that the Golden Fleece is a book. Well, what's written in this book? Well, it says right here concerning the transmutation of metals. That's essentially what it's saying. And here we go again with the transmutation of metals, like I spoke about in the previous section. All right, again, the perfection of lead to gold, right? The transmutation, the transformation of the human, the common person to the extraordinary person, okay? That's what we're talking about. So this was the other connection to the Golden Fleece, with Atalanta Fugiens and Jason and the Argonauts that I wanted to tell you about, because I think it's fascinating. Whether it's true or not, who knows, right? But it sure is interesting. That's kind of what I wanted to tell you about with Jason and the Argonauts, and it's a great story. And in fact, the Golden Fleece, some people say, is an allusion to the Philosopher's Stone, and it also was able to heal people. Okay, so if you were killed, you could lay the Golden Fleece on you, and you would come back to life. Right? It sounds to me like a universal panacea, right? Like the Philosopher's Stone, which is actually powder. Right? So that's kind of the other component of why Michael Maier brings up the Golden Fleece and Jason and his epic tale. So with that, we're going to end this particular video today, and I am going to tell you that something really cool is coming up at the beginning of March. I'm going to be going to Philadelphia to actually view a copy, to actually hold it in my hands, and of a copy of Atalanta Fugiens, from one of the copies from the 16th century. So I'm really excited about this. I will be recording it if I'm permitted to, and I'm pretty sure I should be able to, so that I can share this moment with you, because it's going to be a big moment for me. I'm really excited to see this book in its original form. And I hope you continue to watch these videos. I thank you for watching. Those of you who have subscribed, you're like my best pals. Thank you so very much. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because I've got many more videos to come. The next one will be on the next Emblem, but I'm also going to have a video that I'm going to make on alchemy to help explain and clarify some of the more mystical, hidden components to it. And I'll take it to my secret chambers. I'm going to have some fun with this. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed doing this. This is so much fun. And I know I've left some things out because I'm old and I forget. So, by all means, let me know if I have. And I hope that this has been a great experience for you. And I'll see you at the next video. Thanks again.